Well, I'm back building on the car in our new undisclosed location. Got a lot of work done since the last time I did any filming at all. It's been probably a couple of years, but just doing a little bit of work here and there. Not all of it's been captured on film, of course. You can see what I'm doing here is the doors. That's basically a guide coat that's been put over the primer. The whole car has been high build primered a couple of times, but right now I'm concentrating on getting the doors shaped up. Did a little bit of painting. Went ahead and just painted the inside of the doors after those were prepped and done up really nice, just to see how the paint's laying down. Of course, new coat of paint will go over all that. I'm just getting a little anxious about how the bodywork is turning out, but real proud of our work. Jambs, door jambs and rocker panels are pretty much done. Went ahead and painted those also. Came out real sweet. Of course, they'll get another light blocking prior to the final paint, whenever that might be. This guide coat of pretty much a lacquer paint dries within seconds, and you'll block this surface, and as you block it, you'll remove the guide coat and it will reveal any low spots. So I'll show you how that works out. Before, one of my biggest challenges is keeping that body line crisp, or actually re-establishing it, putting it in the right place and truing it up. Before I put this black guide coat on there, I went and took some pencil marks and tried to mark as best as I can, and even compare it to the other door as far as somewhat of a dimension down from the very top. It doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be good. So went and put some dash lines up there. You can kind of see them, and I've adjusted a little bit. But I put a piece of tape right where I think the body line is going to end up being. And what I want to do is, because this is a very thick high build coat on there, it's almost like a liquid Bondo. So you're basically going to be using this as your sacrificial material as you shape and reshape the door, and again to find the high and low spots. So what I'm going to do is take and I'm still at pretty much a roughing stage, if you will, but this is 120 grit paper on a longboard, and what I'll do, I'll sand right up to that line. Actually, I'll be sanding down. I'm going to do this top first, and after I do that, I'll establish sort of a crisp line right to the tape from the sanding machining action, and I'll wipe that clean, and I'll remove the tape and then move the tape on top, and then I'll do this lower surface. You can see there's low spots right here, 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 right in here. This starts a little bit of a curve, so I have to work on this some more to see just how that really is. Plus, I have to concentrate on watching out for this curvature up here. So I'll use a smaller board and just kind of finesse that one area. But after you sand it like that, you can see the good cut I've got up here where it's blocked completely all the guide coat off. You run your hand across there, you can actually feel it slightly low, and that's something that you would see in a paint job. You go down and take this surface level with the low spot, or bring the low spot up and resurface it. Ultimately, once I get a little closer, the highs and the lows, by doing what I'm doing with this blocking technique, I will put another heavy coat of this high build primer. It's a 2K primer, and of course bring the whole surface back out again, and I'll have more material to actually sand deeper in the same manner that I'm doing now. So repeated steps like that, ultimately you'll have one flat finish, and you'll go to some thinner or smaller grit sandpaper for a smoother surface, and get closer to prepping for paint. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this tape eventually soon, and then move it up to the top of this line, which is right about here that I'm trying to establish, or at least pick up, and I'll sand from here down. And I'm sure I'm going to have some low spots on this panel right here. Some pretty low spots. That's pretty pronounced right there, that black guide coat, and you can even feel it. It kind of dips just a little bit, so I'll put a skim coat of spot or finishing putty right there and bring that up before the next prime. Another spot right here that's definitely pronounced. I mean, you can feel it just by running your hand down through there. It's slightly low, so I'll skim coat that. Some of these lighter spots I can leave, because again I'm going to be putting another heavy coat of 2K primer, this gray that you see on there, and so I'm going to build that back up with a nice thick layer of 4 or 5 coats, and I'll block into that, so I should hit that low spot pretty easily. Makes it a little time, saves a little time doing it that way. You can see this pronounced. This is a flat right here on top, about this wide, and it's not real consistent. You can see the black guide coat kind of moves around, because when I blocked that I squared it. I held it dimensionally this way and dimensionally this way flat. So you bring those two together and this is the end result. The unsanded area is going to be your lows. So I want to try to be consistent, because back here on the car it's pretty crisp. So you can actually feel that this is dull, this is sharp. So what I might do is put a thin coat of finishing putty right along that edge, and then reblock that, square it up, bring that more to a crisper edge, and at least I'll have something to work with. I can always take that down. Right now I can't bring that up unless I add more to it. So I mean, it appears to be crisp, but now I'll put the tape on the top side and I'll block from here down, and of course I'll pick up any low spots that might be on that panel. That's just a quick cut with the 120 grit. You can see I'm already picking up some what appears to be low spots. Now I haven't cut much further, but one thing I want to be aware of is there's another body line right here. So I think at this point in time, now that I've kind of picked it up, you can see where the edge is starting. You gotta be careful to keep the block flat, that way you can pick that edge up. I think I'm going to put some tape across that right there, and I'll sand to it, and that's going to help me establish that body line, keep that a little crisper. And just like I did up here when I moved this to the opposite side, this piece of tape, I'll go on the bottom side also, or top side to bottom side, and try to pick. I only have a couple, low spots, and you really can't hardly fill them at all with your hand, and this is where I'm establishing that body line. You see how critical it is to do the steps that I'm taking, because when I sanded this top pass first, that established the squareness of the blocking. Then of course when I moved the tape where it is in this position right now, I squared to that very same line. So you can see the little low spots in here. This one here is pretty dramatic, and I got an edge here that's kind of low. I may skim that, I may skim this, I could skim that. It really doesn't matter, because the skim coat of finishing putty is so thin that even if I do get it too high, I can easily take it back down. It's really going to help me establish a good edge there, if I want it, as big as I want. Again, there's probably a little bit of low spot right there. It's really hard to tell at this time. I may or may not skim coat that. Here's where I moved the tape from the bottom of this edge to the top. You can see how dramatic that is. So I'll go ahead and finish this. This has got a lot of curve to it, so I've got to be very careful. I'll be using tools like this. This round edge fits in there, nice radius. That's where I burned through my application of high build primer in the gray. It's kind of neat to use different colors of primer as you're doing this, because you can see how far you've gone through a certain application. And I know I'm getting pretty close to the fiberglass when I see this beige here of some previous 2K primer. So I'm going to stop. I don't really want to go through that or get into the fiberglass at all, or the gel coat. I want to stay, you know, a barrier above that nice thick layer of 2K primer. And again, that nice thick build of primer is going to help me have something to sculpt to, if you will, sand down and get to the low spots portion here and remove the tape. Took quite a bit of sanding. I ended up with a little low spot right here, a little depression that I'll skim coat with finishing putty. A little bit low right here. I may or may not put any finishing putty in that. I think I can get that with next couple coats of high build. You can see where I burnt through into the bodywork. That's actually Bondo, so I didn't really want to sand much further than that. So now that I established my flatness and trueness, if you will, and I'm going to, you know, build many layers of. It'll probably take, you know, 2 more processes of what I'm doing right now. This blocking, filling, sanding, blocking, filling, and sanding. May have to do that 2 to 3 more times. So I have to basically repeat everything I've just done. At this point, I'm in the finishing stage. Just basically doing surface preparation and just leveling, the final leveling of the car prior to paint. So next step is go around and do the spots that I mentioned with the finishing putty and the glazing compound, and block that down just in the spots I need to do it in, and then it'll go back, and the whole door will be back into another high build primer. Other doors already went through 2 primers already, so you can see how clean it is. I burnt through right here, but you can see some of the work I did. That yellow is the finishing putty. So I'm truing up the lines. This is flat, so this is ready for another 3 or 4 or 5 coats of high build. You can see where I brought this corner in a little bit. That yellow there is the finishing putty. It's easily sanded, and what I did was just skim coat right on that corner, like I'm thinking about doing on the other side. But you can see a slight bit of low right there, but the sandpaper did hit it. You can see the cross hatches in it, so it's actually pretty high. So I think the next step of high build primer will get that. So just like I did before on that other door, it'll be high build primed, and hopefully 1 more block will do this door here, whereas that other door is just in the initial stages, and it'll need 2 or 3 more, at least 2 more blockings. I'm hoping 1 more high build, 1 more block on this door here, and I should have a complete door ready for finish sanding and painting. And of course the rest of the car has to be done, so I'm kind of just doing 1 step at a time.